The first time my sisters called me crazy, it was over the trash. It sounds small when I say it out loud. Almost laughable, a grown woman losing her mind over garbage bags and missing mail. That's what they told everyone anyway. But to me it never felt small. It felt wrong, like something was slowly unraveling right inside my home, and I was the only one who could hear it tearing. We lived in the same building, just different units. Family convenience, my mother used to say, family closeness. What it really meant was that my sisters always knew what I was doing, when I came home, when I left, and, apparently, what I threw away. It started with little things, mail that never reached my door, utility bills I swore I was waiting for but never received, a strange smell near the shared trash area, like old paper and damp envelopes. I mentioned it once during dinner casually, not accusing anyone. "I think some of my mail keeps getting mixed up," I said, trying to smile, "maybe falling behind the bins or something." They burst out laughing. "Oh my God," my oldest sister said, wiping tears from her eyes. "Here we go again." My younger sister leaned back in her chair, smirking. "You're obsessed with trash. You know that, right?" I felt my face burn. "I'm not obsessed. I'm just saying it's weird." "Everything is weird to you," she replied. "That's your problem." That word problem hung in the air. From then on, it became a pattern. Anytime I brought up something that didn't add up, they turned it into a joke. If I double-checked locks, I was paranoid. If I asked where my mail was, I was dramatic. If I complained about bills arriving late, I was irresponsible. Soon, even I started questioning myself. Maybe I was too sensitive. Maybe stress from work was getting to me. I worked long hours, covered my own expenses, and still helped my family whenever they asked. I was tired mentally and physically. It was easy to believe their version of me, unstable, emotional, overreacting. The trash incident escalated everything. One evening, I noticed the bins had been taken out early, too early. I clearly remembered setting aside a folder with documents I needed: bank letters, insurance paperwork. Gone. I felt panic rising in my chest as I searched through the bags outside, ignoring the stench, my hands shaking. That's when my sisters saw me, standing there, digging, desperate. They didn't ask if I was okay. They laughed. "See?" my older sister said loudly, making sure the neighbors could hear. "Crazy. I told you." I snapped. I didn't scream. I didn't cry. I just said quietly, "Please stop throwing my things away." That's when they exploded. They accused me of accusing them, of making problems out of nothing, of embarrassing the family. My younger sister said the words that stayed with me the longest. "Honestly, you need help." After that night, the label stuck. At family gatherings, conversations went quiet when I walked in. People smiled politely but watched me carefully, like I might say something uncomfortable. My sisters told everyone they were worried about me, worried but never helpful. I stopped talking. Stopped explaining. I told myself it didn't matter what they thought. Still, every night, doubt crept in. What if I really was imagining things? What if I was the problem? Yet deep down, beneath the shame and confusion, there was a small, stubborn voice that refused to die. Something was wrong, and it wasn't me. I didn't plan to look through the trash that night. After everything that happened, the laughter, the accusations, the way my sisters had said crazy like it was a medical diagnosis, I promised myself I was done. No more digging, no more explaining. I would mind my own life, keep my head down, and let their opinions fade into background noise. But life doesn't always respect promises made out of exhaustion. It was late, close to midnight, when I took my own garbage out. The hallway lights flickered, casting long shadows that made the building feel emptier than it really was. As I reached the bins, something caught my eye: white paper sticking out from a torn black bag, damp and crumpled, but unmistakably official. I almost walked away. Then I saw my name, not just my first name, my full name, spelled correctly, with my apartment number underneath it. My stomach dropped. I pulled the paper free with shaking hands. The envelope had been ripped open and stuffed carelessly into the bag, as if whoever threw it away wanted it gone fast. Across the front, in bold red letters, were words that didn't belong to my life. Final notice. My heart began to pound so loudly I was sure someone would hear it. I told myself it had to be a mistake. Junk mail, a wrong address, anything but what my instincts were already screaming. I opened it. Inside was a past due electricity bill 3 months overdue, a balance I didn't recognize, a warning about service interruption. I read it 3 times, my mind refusing to accept what my eyes were seeing. I paid my bills, always had. My hands started to tremble as I reached back into the trash bag, another envelope. Then another. Different companies, same name, same address, same sickening tone. Immediate action required. Account in arrears. Failure to respond may result in collections. I sank down against the cold metal bin, my legs no longer able to hold me. The smell of garbage surrounded me, but I barely noticed. All I could think about was the number forming in my head as I scanned the balances. It was getting close to $10,000. $10,000 I didn't owe. $10,000 I didn't know existed. For a moment I couldn't breathe. My vision blurred, and I pressed my forehead against my knees, trying to steady myself. This wasn't stress. This wasn't anxiety. This wasn't me being dramatic. This was real. I gathered the torn letters, smoothing them out as best I could, and carried them upstairs like fragile evidence. Once inside my apartment, I laid them across the kitchen table, arranging them in neat rows, as if order could somehow bring clarity. That's when the memories started clicking into place. The times my sisters asked for my ID just to make a copy. The paperwork they said they'd help me submit. The bills they insisted I must have misplaced, the jokes about me losing things, the concern about my mental state. I felt cold all over. I opened my laptop with numb fingers and checked my credit report. I wasn't prepared for what I saw. Accounts I had never opened, utilities I had never used, late payments stacked month after month, quietly eroding my name while I slept in the next room, trusting the people who shared my blood. This wasn't an accident. This wasn't trash. This was a system, and I finally understood why every question I asked had been met with laughter, why every concern had been dismissed. If I was crazy, no one would believe me. If I doubted myself, I wouldn't dig deeper. The realization hurt more than the debt ever could. I sat there until dawn, surrounded by letters that were never meant for me to read, feeling something shift inside my chest. The fear was still there, heavy and sharp, but underneath it, something else was forming, clarity. They thought throwing away the evidence would make it disappear. They were wrong. I didn't confront them. Every instinct in my body screamed for it. To march into their apartments, slam the letters on the table, demand answers. I imagined their faces when the truth spilled out. Imagined the panic, the excuses, the lies collapsing under their own weight. But I didn't do it. I had spent too long being emotional for them, too long reacting exactly the way they expected. If I stormed in now, they would call me crazy again. They would cry, deny, twist the story until I was the villain and they were the victims. So instead I went quiet. At family dinners I smiled politely and spoke only when spoken to. When my sisters made jokes about me finally calming down, I nodded. I let them believe their act had worked, that I had given up, that the problem had solved itself. Inside, I was anything but calm. Every free moment was spent gathering proof. I photocopied the letters I had pulled from the trash, carefully taping together the torn edges. I logged dates, account numbers, balances. I highlighted patterns, the same phone numbers, the same mailing preferences, the same timing that coincided with moments my sisters had insisted on helping me. I requested full statements. I froze my credit. I spoke to customer service agents with a steady voice that surprised even me. Each call chipped away at the fear, replacing it with something harder, something steadier, control. Late at night, when the building was quiet, I checked the cameras near the trash area. The footage wasn't perfect, but it was enough. A familiar figure, my sister's jacket, her hands tossing envelopes into the bin like they were worthless. I felt sick watching it, but also validated I wasn't crazy. The hardest part wasn't the money, it was the betrayal. These were the people who hugged me at holidays, who borrowed money without hesitation, who told me they loved me. They had watched me doubt myself and did nothing. Worse, they encouraged it. Sometimes I wanted to scream. But silence was working. I could feel the shift before I saw it. My sisters started watching me the way they used to accuse me of watching others. They asked if I was okay too often, if I needed anything, if I was still stressed. Their smiles looked thinner. Their jokes landed awkwardly. They knew something had changed. What they didn't know was how far I had already gone. I met with a legal aid advisor who spoke plainly and didn't interrupt. I showed her everything. The letters, the reports, the footage. She didn't call me paranoid. She didn't minimize it. She used words like identity fraud and intentional concealment. Words that sounded heavy, but real. For the first time, someone was on my side without questioning my sanity. I stopped explaining myself to my family. I stopped seeking approval. I started sleeping better, not because the situation was resolved, but because I finally trusted my own mind again. One evening, my younger sister cornered me in the hallway. "You've been really distant," she said, her voice light but her eyes sharp. "You're not mad about the trash thing, are you?" I looked at her and realized something startling. I felt nothing. "No," I said calmly, "I'm fine." It unsettled her more than anger ever could have. That night, I sat alone in my apartment, surrounded by neatly organized folders. Evidence stacked where self-doubt used to live. I thought about how they had laughed at me while I was digging through garbage, how small they had tried to make me feel. They thought revenge would be loud. They were wrong. Revenge, I was learning, could be patient, quiet. Precise, and when it arrived, it would speak for itself. Weeks passed. The apartment building remained the same, the hallways the same shade of dim beige, the flickering lights still announcing my late night walks to the bins. But inside me, everything had shifted. I no longer waited for their laughter to confirm my reality. I no longer questioned every pang of doubt. I had rebuilt my truth, brick by brick, from the evidence they couldn't hide. It started quietly. The letters I had rescued were submitted to the authorities. Credit reports flagged, fraudulent accounts frozen. Legal paperwork prepared. Slowly, meticulously, I handed the responsibility to the people whose job it was to untangle lies from lives. Each step was a careful reminder that my patience had power. Then came the day they realized it. My sister's laughter faltered when they saw me speaking with a bank investigator in the lobby. Their jokes about my obsession with trash lost their punch when an officer showed up at the building to request statements. I watched calm and composed as recognition dawned on them, that spark of panic. They had never experienced it firsthand, and it was delicious in its justice. They confronted me the next evening, at one of our usual family dinners. Their voices trembled slightly, a sound I had never heard before. We didn't mean for it to go this far," my older sister stammered. "It was supposed to be just a joke." I looked at her across the table, my hands folded neatly in front of me. The letters I had gathered, the reports I had filed, and the silent patience I had cultivated were my armor. I didn't yell, I didn't cry, I didn't beg for recognition. I let them hang in the air, their words empty against the weight of facts. The younger sister tried another angle. "You've made a big deal out of nothing. We were trying to help." I shook my head slowly. "Help," I said. "Do you know what it feels like to see your name on documents that could ruin you? To be called crazy for noticing your life is being stolen? That's not help, that's betrayal." Tears welled up in their eyes, but they were hollow, rehearsed, too late. Apologies sounded fragile, like paper beneath my hands. Their recognition of the truth had come only when the authorities intervened. I stayed quiet, letting the system speak for me. Bank statements corrected, credit restored, fraudulent accounts closed, legal measures ensured they could no longer tamper with my name, my life. The walls they had built around me with laughter and ridicule crumbled under the weight of reality. By the time the last statement was filed, I felt a peace I hadn't known in years. I hadn't yelled, I hadn't destroyed, I hadn't humiliated. I had simply waited, observed, and acted when the truth demanded it. That was my victory, quiet, undeniable, and complete. In the weeks that followed, I made changes. I moved a few blocks away, leaving the building that had once been a cage. The familiar hum of the city became my companion. I didn't reach out to apologize or reconcile. I didn't seek validation from anyone. I had learned something important. My worth was never defined by their approval. And yet, I found something unexpected in the silence they had forced upon me. I found strength, I found clarity, I found that revenge need not be loud to be devastating. One evening, as I unpacked boxes in my new apartment, I paused by the window. The city lights stretched endlessly, indifferent to the small battles of one apartment block, yet somehow mirroring the vastness of what I had endured and overcome. The trash, the laughter, the cruel dismissals, they hadn't broken me. They had revealed the truth. They had shown me who I was capable of being when pushed to the edge. And for the first time in years, I smiled not at them, not even at the situation, but at myself. I was no longer the sister they mocked. I was no longer the girl who doubted every instinct. I was the one who waited patiently, who let silence sharpen into justice, and who allowed the truth to speak louder than anger ever could. Sometimes I thought the sweetest revenge isn't the shouting or the confrontation. It's walking away whole, unbroken, and letting the world finally see the person you've always known yourself to be. And in that quiet, undeniable victory, I finally felt free,